Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome to the stream. What's up, Arkham J81, the Gotham Guardian quiz? Arkham J, LP3. Welcome, everybody. Sorry that I am late once again, but you guys have come to expect it at this point. Can you guys just, get over it? I'm just going to be 5 minutes late, all right? It's not that big of a deal. Late, Moff. Yeah, whatever. Okay, Mom. Anyway, so, today, I'm joined once again by Teresa. Teresa, thank you for joining.
Have a severe lag here, but I think we'll work it out.
Oh, we'll work it out. We'll be good. Her channel's linked down in the description below. You just passed 400 subscribers, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep. Woohoo!
That's epic. Congrats. So everybody go subscribe to her. Check out her channel if you're interested in Batman and Batman content. She's got a lot of it going on over there, and she's got some really good stuff. So make sure you go check that out. I've got a poll in the chat. Do you want to see the Joker in the Batman 2? Please make your voice heard. We've already got 25 people in the chat. Thank you guys all for being here. Make sure to like the stream, and in addition to liking the stream, oh wait, hold up, my chat box isn't. Hold up 1 second. I'm making one quick change for the stream here, just so you guys can see the chat. I'm just going to move the chat box up to the top just so the chat appears in the stream. Give me 1 second. But yeah, ultimately the goal of this live stream is to talk about the Batman 2. Now, we should also be clear and be totally transparent. This movie is not coming out anytime soon per se. So it's not like this movie's in even pre-production. In my understanding, it might be in the very, very initial stages of pre-production. But of course, it's Warner Brothers, so they're going to wait and see how the film does from a box office perspective. And then they're going to look into, launching the Batman 2. But this film is on pace to do pretty well. It's going to fall short of $1 billion, which is a little disappointing. But I guess in this post-COVID era, it's two things. One is COVID, obviously, and 25% of moviegoers that were going to the movies before 2019 still have not returned. So that's a pertinent thing, that basically a quarter of the movie-going audience is still totally unwilling and averse to go to see any movies. So that's going to basically cut your box office performance by, obviously, roughly 25% right there. But the second thing is this advent of the streaming platforms, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Peacock, Hulu, Netflix. I mean, everyone and their mother has a streaming platform at this point. So that's another factor in why so many people are staying home and not going to the theaters. But nonetheless, I digress. In this stream, we're talking about the Batman 2 and what we would like to see out of the film. If you guys haven't seen, Teresa and I did a review on my YouTube channel. She has her own review on her YouTube channel as well. Go check that out and subscribe to her channel, and then also check out our live stream VOD if you didn't catch it when we were live streaming a couple of days ago. But this has been an interesting couple of days. It's been interesting having so many people interested in Batman again. I mean, I've lived my whole life being interested in Batman. So when everyone and their mother is interested in it, I don't know what to do about it, because I look at my Twitter, I'm getting ratio to smithereens on this tweet, and this tweet's getting 10,000 likes, and I'm just
I was gonna do a post and be like, "This is Slick Moff listening to the Batman soundtrack," and have the GIF of the guy from Clockwork Orange getting drops put in his eyes and having his face taped open. I'm like, I won't even. No, I'm not gonna bring up the soundtrack. I'm not gonna argue about it. I just wanted to mention that.
No, that's okay. No, my point is just it's really fun that so many people care about Batman, because I always like him every day of the week, year round. But when the entire world cares about him all of a sudden, I'm just like, I don't know what to do about it. It's just like, holy shit, where were all you guys?
Yeah, I remember when you had your hot take on the Iron Spider suit, and everybody just lost their minds for days over that. Was that the Iron Spider suit take for No Way Home?
Yeah, it was.
Well, it's not. My timeline has been Batman for days. That's all anybody talks about, which is a little bit of relief, because my timeline is largely DC and Marvel stuff. And for a while it was Peacemaker, and I'm not interested in that show at all. And so now it's just Batman. And I'm like, yes, this is my time.
This is my time to shine. Exactly. Yeah. And everybody's like, you're baiting for attention. And I'm like, I'm literally not. I swear to you, I do not give a fuck how many Twitter followers I have. If I did, I would be doing a very poor job at it, because I only have 5,000 followers. So I promise you.
You have more followers than Riddler.
I have more followers than the Riddler. I have 10 times as many followers.
people are making a big deal of that. They're like, he's got like 500 followers, and then I'm like, really? He's got more followers than me. I don't really have that big of a Twitter site.
It
but,
did that one line. If I can critique the movie slightly, it did kind of feel like a boomer's take on what social media is. It's like 500 followers. That's a lot, right? And it's like,
yeah. Sure. To be fair, maybe they were saying like we're surprised that this deranged serial killer has any followers. Like,
right.
I mean, but that's something in real life. Like, you've got deranged people who've got a lot of followers. So yeah, it was. People need to relax about it, though.
Yeah, it was just really interesting. But yeah, it's been really fun being on Twitter. Even though today, every time I open my it's one of those things where every time I open my mentions, even if I last checked it 60 seconds ago, it's still like 20 plus responses, and then it's like people liking, people sharing, and then it's just memes about how I suck and I'm the worst person ever. And then there's like,
yeah, it's always funny when you like you tweet something that you don't even think is gonna get that much. Like, I've tweeted controversial things, and I'm like, no one cares what I say. It's no one's gonna see it, and then I'll come back, and then that'll be the one tweet that blows up, and people want me dead.
yeah, no, it's really fun. I mean, this is nothing compared to when the Zack Snyder thing, when Zack Snyder.
Oh, the Zack Snyder. Yeah, nothing compares to that.
This is nothing compared to that. And when what's his face? God, I'm blanking on his name. Who's the dude that works on the animated movies that responded to me? He's the one that sparked all of this.
Fuck. I can't remember his name.
You know who I'm talking about, right? He's the guy who works on the animated movies, and he worked on Batman v Superman, and then he's the one that actually responded to my tweet.
Like, I know who you're talking about.
Jay Oliva.
I think I know.
Jay Oliva. Thank you.
Jay Oliva. I was thinking of something else. I'm like, are you talking about? I can't even remember the name of the guy I'm thinking of, but. Oh. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
No. Okay, let's jump in. And you have to go in 30 minutes, right, Teresa?
I can go. Like, I got an hour to be on here. Someone else needs to use the internet, so that's what's going on. I don't have to be anywhere.
Got it. Okay, well, let's get through this here. So speaking of tweets, like one of the tweets that I had that was really getting a lot of traction, and that's sort of the idea that spurred on this live stream, is just talking about what's going to be in the Batman 2. So I tweeted the Batman sequel villain wish list, and I attached it. This is over like 10,000 likes. So everybody's like quote tweeting and engaging, and I've really enjoyed reading through all the comments and responses on this thread, and to get everybody's opinions, because everybody's so strongly opinionated about this, which I really like. Some people feel very strongly, like Jay, who responded to this thread, that he doesn't want the Joker, and other people really do, and that's why I have the poll, and I want to see what you guys think about this. So for my Batman wish list, I put 4 villains. I put Scarecrow, I put Deathstroke, which everybody is like, is not a Batman villain, and I'm like, you pretend like I've never read comics, like, and I don't know what's going on. You know, it's just like, God, nothing annoys me more than these people that... It's one thing if you just admit, I've never read comic books and I don't know what I'm talking about. I watch the movies, I'm a mainstream fan. But it's another thing when somebody is like a mainstream fan and then they come to somebody like me that actually has read the comics and actually...
I hate that. I've had that so much, or where someone who obviously has not read comics because they don't get their facts straight, tries to like talk down to me as if, oh, this is what actually happened in the comics and this is what's going to happen in the movie because of the comics. I'm like, I actually read comics. I can show you my collection. One time, this isn't getting off track. One time,
no, you're good. Go.
I saw a friend of mine was getting in an argument with someone about comics, and it ended up with them accusing them. I know this person actually reads comics, and they're like, you obviously don't read comics. And the person went, yes, I do. And they posted an image of comic books as if that was their collection. And then we Googled it, and that's like the first image you get when you type in comic book collection on Google. So I thought that was hilarious. They like took the image and then flipped it and then said, yes, I do read comics.
They went to such extreme lengths to lie and pretend. So yeah, I've been getting a lot of that of like, you don't know what you're talking about. This is in the comic books, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you've never read anything in your life. Like, you literally have watched Batman movies and maybe seen a couple of animated movies. And by the way, that's fine. I'm not a gatekeeper at all. I will never be the sort of person to be like, oh, all these fucking mainstream fans. I'm never, ever that person. But I am that person if you come to me and call me the fake fan. That's when I get defensive. That's when I'm like, no. Let's get this straight. You don't know what you're talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. Don't lecture me on what Batman is and who Deathstroke is. Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You've seen your full extent of what you know about Deathstroke is his fucking 30-second cameo at the end of Justice League. That's all you know about him, and that he was maybe going to be in the Batman. So be quiet. Anyway, Mr. DC Comics with the $10 super chat. Thank you, Mr. DC Comics. Batman Family was interesting. Would like to see more of it in the sequel with Alfred, Hush, and the Court of Owls. Also would love to see Heart of Ice, but redone in the Batman saga. Mr. DC Comics. Batman Family Past was interesting. Are you talking about in the movie and the Batman? Because there was very, very little Bat Family. You're talking about the Thomas and Martha, the Thomas Wayne thing and how he was corrupt. Yes. I agree with that, Mr. DC Comics. I know that you've obviously familiar with Batman Telltale, and I thought that was masterfully done in Batman Telltale, and it was really interesting to see here. I don't think in any way it diminishes the Batman character. This is a critique that I've seen from many people, that it's like it's somehow antithetical to Batman as a character. I think it only reinforces his mission in the movie, and it really, really was powerful in crafting him as this hero that he becomes at the end of the film, and the transformation that he undergoes over the length of the 3-hour runtime from this sort of vigilante to being a hero by the end of the movie. I thought was masterfully done better than any other Batman film. And Thomas Wayne having a checkered past, I thought only enhanced that. By no means did it detract from it. So kudos to them for pulling that off, but I thought they did that really well. I want to touch on the second part of your comment. Would like to see more of it in the sequel with Alfred, Hush, and the Court of Owls. Also would love to see Heart of Ice, but redone. So the Court of Owls, this is an interesting thing because I tweeted about the Court of Owls, and Teresa, I want to get your thoughts on this. I tweeted that the Court of Owls should be in the second film, but then I started thinking about it more, and I actually don't really know what they would do with the Court of Owls, and here's why. Basically, what this movie was what they would explore with the Court of Owls, and that is like exposing the corrupt underbelly of Gotham. Basically exposing that Gotham is a corrupt, rotten to the core sort of place, and Batman is trying to unearth that and expose that, and that's really what the Court of Owls plot line is all about. But I felt like in this movie, they already touched on a lot of those themes, and also touched on the themes of like Gotham being corrupt. And, Long Halloween and Court of Owls, there is a lot of overlap, between those two storylines. And part of me thinks they should go in more of a traditional Batman comic booky direction with somebody like Deathstroke or Joker in the second film. But I'm curious to get your take and what you think about that.
Yeah, I think I already heard somebody mention that Court of Owls, that storyline is actually very similar to what we get in the movie. But here's the thing, and I agree with you. I would like to see the second movie be something like more traditional, like a Mr. Freeze story or something like that. I think whatever happens in the sequel, it's going to be a lot of different characters and a lot of different plot lines made into one movie, kind of like this one was. But the Court of Owls, I'm just kind of, because I haven't, that's like I mentioned this before, it's one of the few major Batman comics I haven't actually read. I'm ordering it now because everyone's talking about it, but
wait, Long Halloween?
Not Long Halloween, Court of Owls.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
It's great.
I've read Long Halloween many, many times. I love it. Anyway, but yeah, this movie kind of touched on that, but I think that it's possible because Matt Reeves keeps talking about Court of Owls so much that we might just have this as a reoccurring theme throughout the trilogy of the Batman movies and throughout the Reevesverse and whatnot that they're calling it. It just might be a reoccurring theme about the corruption of Gotham and how many centuries and years back it goes. I think Court of Owls is it's like a century-old organization and how they kind of are responsible for what Gotham became. And that would be interesting because they talk about Carmine Falcone. That's how you pronounce it, Carmine Falcone. They talk about how he's kind of responsible for the way Gotham is in the present day. But Bruce Wayne talks about how the city is sick and scarred like he is. And so I think that it would be worthwhile in a movie to explore, well, how exactly did Gotham get this way? Because it wasn't just Falcone that's made it this way. And so I think that Matt Reeves might be going for, okay, let's go back to the root of it all. Why is Gotham like this weird, depraved city of these people? So I can see that, but it's likely because I don't think that they've exactly pinpointed what they want to do with the sequel because they keep throwing out so many ideas. Like you could get Mr. Freeze in the sequel as like the primary villain that they're focusing on, but still have some Court of Owls stuff in the background, I guess, and just have that theme of corruption in Gotham continue. So it would just depend how they do it, but I could see that really working. But I would really, if you were to ask me and be like, Teresa, what do you want in the next Batman film, and we'll make it, I would say do Mr. Freeze, do Joker, do more Batman villains, because I'm more interested in that aspect, just from a subjective point of view.
Greg sends in a $2 super chat. Fake fan, you've never read a comic. I don't know if you're talking to me or Teresa. I'm gonna say, Greg, that you were talking about Teresa, not me. So that's
it's
what I'm
because
gonna.
I said I hadn't read Court of Owls. Oh, at least I've admitted that that is one of the few major Batman graphic novels I haven't read. At least I admitted I didn't lie and be like, yeah, I love Court of Owls, my favorite Batman
It's like
comic.
I know everything about the Court of Owls. Yeah.
Like
So
you haven't. No one has read every. I'm sorry. No one has ever read every single Batman comic. If they have, then I'd like to talk to them and see who they are and how old they are and whatnot.
yeah, they would have to have an insane obsession. One thing that I'll say is I completely agree with you. And one thing that I would like to see with this trilogy is sort of this dynamic range between each of the three films in the trilogy. And one thing that I thought Matt Reeves did an incredible job in this movie is he made it very tonally, visually, aesthetically distinct. Really, in every way, this is distinct from other Batman movies. It's this gritty crime, sort of moody thriller in many ways. It's a detective story in many ways, obviously, and it definitely does not read or play like a traditional comic book film. And I think that's great. But I also wouldn't want to see an entire trilogy of this movie times 3. Like, I would not want to see this movie just replicated over and over again and exploring the same themes about corruption within Gotham and evil and all that shit. Like, at a certain point, I do want... I just want to see different content and different takes on this interpretation of Batman, and I do think, and I would like to see a more comic booky-esque story in the second film. You know, if the first film is a really grounded noir, like almost police detective thriller sort of film, that's great. But what I'm saying is I just don't want every single movie to be that. I don't want then in the second movie to be like, now Hush is the serial killer and we've got to stop Hush. And it's like, and then the third one, it's like some other serial killer. It's like Professor Pig. And it's like, you know, I just want these movies to be distinct across the board. Really, that's all I can ask for is I want these movies to feel different. And the way that you do that is, in the second movie, we use Clayface and the Joker and just go over the top with the sort of comic booky stuff that we've come to like and expect, like more akin to the Batman the Animated Series or something, Batman the Animated Series or something like that, as opposed to this gritty, grounded crime noir thriller, which again, there's nothing wrong with. That's great. I just don't want an entire trilogy that feels exactly the same. And by the way, I mean, Chris Nolan did a great job of this. Like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight feel completely different, in my opinion. They really do. Like they read it just play in a completely different way while still being in that same universe. And I think it's very important for Matt Reeves to accomplish that. So when I look towards villains that I would like to see in the second movie, I am thinking more in the direction of a villain that we saw in Batman Arkham or the animated series. Someone that is a little bit more traditional and frankly a more traditional and conventional take on these villains. I don't think that every single villain that is introduced in this trilogy needs to be some like rendition or changed version of the character that we know. You know, I really like this take on the Riddler, but it's not the Riddler from the comics in any way. It's almost like a completely different character with a mask over it, which is fine. I like it. You know, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that at a certain point, I actually would like to see, hey, this is the Joker from the comics. Like, you know, I get a little bit concerned with someone like Matt Reeves that he wants to sort of leave his own mark on everything. And it would be a real shame if it's like, we need to reinvent Mr. Freeze. It's like, no, we really don't. We actually have never seen Mr. Freeze correctly on the big screen. And no, 1997 doesn't count. Like, we don't need to make some altered different version of Mr. Freeze with Matt Reeves' take on it. Like, I think we just need Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, because I think that the only thing that I'd be okay with him doing is if he tweaks him just a little bit, like from what he would be in the animated series, not character wise, but you know, in terms of like the suit he wears and like what his condition is, like if he tweaks that just a little bit to where he's like slightly more comfortable with it and it can be just a little bit more grounded, then I'm fine with that. But yeah, I want Mr. Freeze. I don't want everyone to become Heath Ledger's Joker. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but not everybody in the movie has to be like a real life serial killer. Like I don't think comic book Riddler. I don't really think of him as a serial killer. Even if he has killed people, that's not really what defines him for me. So yeah, but what you were saying about like different that you don't want every movie to feel the same or look the same. What I like about the Dark Knight trilogy a bit is like the colors that they use in each film.
Correct.
In Begins, like primarily they use like yellows for the color grading, and in Dark Knight it's like cool colors like blues, and then in Rises it's like grays. I really like that as a choice for that. So I'd be interested if we are seeing a bit more of a heightened universe with the Batman. I think it does not feel super real. It does not feel like it takes place in the real world at all. So if we're like seeing Bruce Wayne and Batman evolve and how that evolves the city with more costumed criminals coming out like they do in the comics, then I would like to see how that would stylistically change the sequel and see what different approaches they take to the lighting and the cinematography and stuff like that. And someone I saw tweeted that since reds and yellows were the primarily colors for the Batman, primarily red, that they should use blue for like Mr. Freeze, the sequel, use lots of blues, lots of icy colors. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'd be down for that.
No, but that really is important. The way the Dark Knight trilogy is visually distinct, it is an important distinction. It really does make each film feel different in many ways and presents like The Dark Knight Rises as this like disaster movie and Batman Begins as this like sort of more grounded noir movie. You know, I just thought that was really well done. I completely agree with you. Greg says, I've read every single Batman comic, and he also says, Teresa, please provide proof that Bruce is the Mask. Oh God. That whole conversation on Twitter, once again, don't get me going on these like mainstream comic fans who always recite that line like Bruce is the facade Batman. It's like, we get it, okay, we know that. Like, don't say that every single time as if that's profound, you know. It's like that's an original thought or something that you just thought of. Okay, one other thing is the Gotham Guardian says we need Slick Moth to make the Batman 2 score. I thought that was funny.
Okay.
Knighton says
I'll
Greg
dare
is
you
the
to do it.
GOAT. No yellow emblem return. I agree. I don't want to see the yellow emblem in Batman 2. Let's see. What other comments do we have? The Phantasm should be a villain. Mr. DC Comics. I agree with that. But let's say. Go ahead.
Can I interject something Robert Pattinson said? I guess somebody asked him, like, has this version of Bruce Wayne had any girlfriends? And he's like, probably, but they'd probably be kind of weird. I'm like, okay, bring in Andrea Beaumont, the Phantasm. That'll be perfect. So
yes.
We might be able to lead into that a little bit.
That's hilarious. That would be awesome to see. Okay, so one discussion that I wanted to talk about that everybody has been clamoring about is obviously, saying right now, this is spoilers for the Batman. If you have not seen the Batman, please click away. Now I'm going to go over a very pertinent spoiler, a very big spoiler, and then I want to discuss it. So you've been warned, going now. Obviously, the Joker appears to be in the Batman. Now, Matt Reeves is downplaying this. He's like, oh, maybe it's not him. Oh, you know, that wasn't setting up for the sequel, blah, blah, blah. It's like, whatever. Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I don't know. But either way, it seems to me like it's the Joker. Okay. And as a matter of fact, as we discussed with the whole Facebook post of the brother, we're not going to get into it. We talked about it last time. Like, it's pretty much everybody's under the impression that this is the Joker, including the actor who was playing the Joker. Okay, so the question is this a Batman Begins-esque setup where we're teeing up for the Joker to be in the second film, or is this something completely different? And part B of that question, do we want the Joker to be in the second movie, or do we want to wait, or do we want to not use him at all? There's obviously been a lot of Joker fatigue online of people saying they don't want the Joker, but part of me thinks that's not really true. But that's just me. Anyway, what are your thoughts, Teresa?
So I'm a little bit all over the place with this because I remember like we did a little bit of a stream talking about the Batman just a little bit on Kelly Warrior Woman 91's channel last year. And I was like, oh, I don't want, I part of the reason, I can't imagine that I had this thought back then. I was like, I don't really want to just do villains that we've already seen a couple times or several times already. We need to let new people come in. But at the same time, like you have to have your take on the Joker or the definitive version of the Joker on screen. If you're doing a Batman universe, everyone kind of just expects it. So I'm kind of torn between, Joker is one of my favorite characters from Batman. I enjoy Joker even more than Batman most of the time. So it's hard for me not to go, yeah, I do want to see the Joker again. And I would be happy to see him in a sequel. I'm just torn between, well, I want Mr. Freeze, which is a character I don't think the Joker really meshes with in a story. I would want to see Mr. Freeze and Clayface and Poison Ivy and all these characters we haven't seen done really come on screen. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I do want to see what, because I love this Batman so much, I want to see what his Joker is. So, I can't really say. There's the rumor that he's going to be a part of the newly christened Arkham Asylum show. Like he's going to be one of the main characters, at least for like the first season or something like that. And I don't know how I feel about that because I'm always like, I want to have him in the theatrical movies. I don't want to have them just confined to streaming. So I'm just kind of torn on the whole thing. I'll just say I really want to see the Joker in this universe, and I won't be mad if he's in the sequel. But at the same time, I really want to see these other characters done who haven't gotten a chance yet. And it's like, I mean, with this Reevesverse, we're probably going to get an appearance of every major Batman character from the comics because they're really teasing that they're expanding with these HBO Max shows and trying to bring more characters in. But for the movies in the theater, presumably only 3 movies, we only have so much space. But I think I don't buy Matt Reeves of, oh, we might not bring him in the sequel. Like he's already done an interview where he's nailed down a lot of what this version of the character is going to be. And I think if it really doesn't matter what he thinks if he wants to do Court of Owls. If the executives behind this are like, okay, bring in the Joker, we want $1 billion. Every movie he's been a part of in the past has made $1 billion. Then he's going to be forced to put him in there, whether we like it or not. And it doesn't really matter what the hardcore Batman fans or people on Twitter, saying we're tired of the Joker. They're like, mainstream audiences think Batman means Joker. They're going to expect the Joker. So for that alone, they might just put him in the sequel immediately.
Yeah, it's this weird sort of blurred lines where they only give Batman to very, very competent directors that they really trust, right? Like Chris Nolan and Matt Reeves. So it's this weird thing where, like, obviously they let Matt Reeves do whatever the fuck he wanted to do in this movie. But just about. I mean, literally, the movie's 3 hours. Zack Snyder was like, hey, can I make a 3-hour movie? And they're like, no. But then Matt Reeves is like, can I make a 3-hour movie? And they're like, yeah, of course, Matt Reeves. You're awesome. You're great. So it's going to be the same sort of thing in the sequel where, like, Matt Reeves does have a lot of sway, and he kind of can push WB around a little bit in terms of getting his creative choices. But there's a limit to that. And to your point,
Yeah.
if the WB execs are eyeing $1 billion with the Joker, I mean, that's what's going to happen. Is going to be like, well, okay, this movie with the Riddler made $800 million. How much could we make with the Joker? And the answer is a lot more. And
Yeah.
they're right. It would make 1.5 billion probably if you do include him. So
Unless they're like really committed to, oh well, Matt Reeves wants to do Mr. Freeze, Court of Owls, whatnot, so that's why we're putting Joker in like the Arkham Asylum show to kind of develop him there and then maybe bring him over into the movies later. There's no way he's not going to be in the movies. It's just a question of when.
Correct. And there is an argument to be made to put him in the third movie. Like there really is, because here's the problem with looking back at the Dark Knight trilogy is that you start with Batman Begins, which is obviously a really solid start to the trilogy. You go into Dark Knight, which is just this like incredible high point where the Joker performance is incredible. Really, it's impeccable in every way, and you can't really top the Joker. That's the problem that Chris Nolan ran into, is you can't beat the Joker. He's too iconic. He's too impactful from a marketing perspective. He's just too iconic. So when you follow up with Bane, it doesn't matter how great Tom Hardy did in that role, it still was going to feel like a letdown. And basically, The Dark Knight Rises was doomed before it even came out, and that was the problem with it. And WB might learn from that mistake. And actually, I do kind of think in the second movie, it would be a wise move. If I were them, it would be a wise move to have him tangentially, sort of interstitially around it. So maybe he has like 5 minutes of screen time or something. Think of like a Suicide Squad-esque cameo, right?
I was about to suggest that maybe he could kind of be in the second movie, just sort of in the, like he's here and kind of planting the seeds, and maybe has like a minor relevance to the plot or something. You can plant the seeds and have him there, but have his big movie be the third one. The only reason I wouldn't like him being in the third one, even though I think that at this point it'd probably really work and would probably just build up more hype if he's like the grand finale villain. But then movie comes out and then it's over, and I guess the previous Jokers. It's funny because there's been so many actors to play the Joker, and with various levels of success, but they've all each only gotten one movie, unless you count like Jared Leto appeared in Zack Snyder's Justice League, so I guess that's something. But we only get one movie with them and then they're gone, and then that would be funny if this followed the pattern. Like you really only get one movie with this Joker, and then like him or not, he's gone. Like he's a one act clown. He only appears once.
Yep, and they've already actually changed that because the Joker was in this movie. Whereas obviously in Batman Begins,
you're right.
It was just a Joker card sort of tease. But that is an interesting observation. I mean, I don't even know if you could call the character that we saw the Joker, really. I mean,
yeah, he's a proto version of him. He hasn't really become the Joker yet.
Yeah, which, by the way, I hate. Not the way that they did the Joker. What I'm saying is, I don't want to see a movie with proto Joker. I don't. I only want a movie with real Joker. Okay, I don't want to see Joker
I still am. I don't like it when they give Joker an origin. I don't even really like it that in Batman the Animated Series you still kind of have an idea of who he was before the Joker. Like I'm sorry, I just like the Heath Ledger, the Killing Joke versions where it's ambiguous and he like has multiple stories he tells in place of an actual idea of an origin. I just like that a lot better. But I mean, it has been done where he has more of an origin, or at least an idea of who he was before the Joker. So I'm not going to say that it won't work. It's just not what I would prefer.
I completely agree with that. And, the point I was getting at is with Gotham and all that, it's a perfectly fine show. I have nothing against it. But I really hate this whole shit of like, is it the Joker? Is it not? And then he like oscillates back and forth with being the insane Joker that we love, and then going back to like, oh, well, actually he's like kind of normal and maybe he's not the Joker. And then it's like, I just don't like that. Is it the Joker? Is it not? Stop playing games.
If I remember correctly, I think some of that happened because they like were struggling with the rights to the character, and that's why when he finally appeared, he looked like Gollum more than the Joker. Yes. I think that's what happened like with that show, that they just couldn't figure out what the situation with the rights, and that's why some characters were like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I mean, I agree with Tim in the chat and everybody else who's pointing out that like it's a big liability to actually use the Joker as the main villain of the second movie. So in that sense, I do believe Matt Reeves that actually the Joker is not going to be the main villain of the second movie. Which leaves the point, like, let's say that the Joker is going to be the villain in the third movie. And if there's anything we know about the Joker is that he is going to overshadow anyone that you include with him. So even if there is a secondary villain, whether that be some crime boss like it was in The Dark Knight or whatever, or Two-Face, Batman and the Joker is going to be that fundamental relationship that is going to overshadow everything else. So keeping that in mind, and keeping in mind that the third movie, you don't really have much room for an iconic villain, the question remains, who do you want to see in the second movie? And you had talked about it, and is your final answer like Mr. Freeze? That's 100% who you would go with if you had to pick.
Okay, yeah. If not the Joker, which I will accept him pretty much wherever he appears next, because I'm that big a fan of the Joker. I just hope they do him right. I would say Mr. Freeze as the villain. That's the number one villain that I want to see in the sequel. Why? Because I think because his story Heart of Ice is like so iconic and was so lauded, but it's like what we have for it is Arnold Schwarzenegger throwing out ice puns, and I'm like, we should have a major on-screen story where mainstream audiences finally get to see the Mr. Freeze story, and I think that Matt Reeves could do it really well.
Yeah, I also think though that leaves a lot of villains off the table. Like, what about Hush? What about Ra's al Ghul? What about Killer Croc? What about Clayface?
That's true. There's just so many villains to be used. I think that if the ones we don't get in the movies we're gonna get on the Arkham Asylum show, I think that there's a reason why they're making an Arkham Asylum show. They're like, Batman's rogues are almost more popular than Batman, but we can never get them all in a movie universe. So, but it's true. It's difficult. You bring up a good point. I really want Mr. Freeze. I've wanted Clayface in something for a long time because I really love Clayface, and we have the technology now to do his character and do it really well,
right.
But they just never go for him. I think there's different Clayface like people to have had that mantle though. There's like the actor, and I think there's I think the actor is Matt Hagen, and then there's Poison Ivy, there's Mad Hatter. I think it would be a really interesting villain to use. Yeah, there's Rachel. There's just so many characters.
You know what they should do?
I guess
in the third movie, they should the two villains should be Joker and Clayface, and they should pull the old fake Joker gag again, just like they did. And it's
Joker and Clayface.
Huh?
Yeah, Joker and Clayface. That would work. That I was thinking of like villains that will be well paired with him, because Mr. Freeze certainly not. Mr. Freeze was not well paired with Poison Ivy of all characters.
Yes, true. I always really like the combo of the Joker and Court of Owls. I really like it because fundamentally the Court of Owls and the Joker, in my view, are like the antithesis to one another. The Court of Owls are all about like order and hierarchy and organization, and the Joker's the exact opposite. Like the Joker's the sort of person who would also want to take down the Court of Owls with Batman. It's like the enemy of the enemy is my friend.
You better watch out. You better watch out. You might get Matt Reeves ideas. That might be the sequel, Joker and Court of Owls.
I'm just saying, I would be down for it. I would be down for it. And you know what else would be cool? Here's a revolution. Not really revolution. Here's an idea that would be totally unlike anything we've seen. What if the next two movies are like a part 1, part 2? In other words, you have Joker and the Court of Owls, but they're like the main villains for the second and the third movie. They'll never do that though, because they want to get enough people in. Yeah.
They wouldn't do that, because then it would be like part 1, and it would be like one movie, and then the next movie is really just one long, like the second and third one is just one long story. I don't think that they would do that. I just thought of a character that I really wanted in a villain, and then I completely forgot who. That's it. I think that actually Joker and Scarecrow might be well paired together, because Scarecrow has his fear toxin and Joker has his like laughing toxin, and I've read stories where Joker will like take Scarecrow's fear toxin and like mangle it into something far, far worse. So those are two characters you could pair together. And I know we've already gotten Cillian Murphy to play Scarecrow, and I actually like him a lot. That's another character. I mean, I'd like to see all the characters done, like Mad Hatter, all of them. But if I could like ask you a question though,
yes.
We've been talking a lot about the villains. So I said this on the last stream, and I said this right after I got out of the movie the first time. During the movie, all I could think of was give this Batman a Dick Grayson, give him a Robin. Because it is actually, as of this year, it's been 25 years since we've seen Batman on the big screen with a Robin, ever since Batman and Robin really killed it. And the seeds are there whenever you see like Batman looking over at that little boy. All I could he was thinking, I gotta steal that kid and make him my sidekick. But no, he like the seeds are there for a Robin in this universe. And as Bruce Wayne is kind of changing his identity, like I have been waiting to see like the classic Batman and Robin combo done well on screen, because I'm not really a fan of the Batman and Robin Batman Forever version of Dick Grayson. I would love to see that on screen, and I would love to see them cast an actual teenager or someone who can pass as a teenager to play Robin, so we can have that whole dynamic explored. And the fact that this Batman is such a freak, I think it would be even more interesting. So I don't know. What do you think about that? I know you've said that you want to see the Bat family on screen before. What do you think about bringing Robin in?
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest holdup with this movie, is that the Bat family wasn't going to be in it. And I said, I don't think they're going to do the Bat family in the movie. And everybody said, oh, no, they're going to. Robin's going to be in it, blah, 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 blah. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people were telling me that. And I was like, I told you they weren't going to do it. And frankly, I'm concerned that they're not going to do it in the second movie, because what would I rather see than a tease for the Joker in this movie? I'd rather see a tease for Robin. I'd rather see a tease that we're going to be getting a Bat family story. Like, nothing would be more interesting to me than Batman, Dick Grayson, Nightwing, and Barbara Gordon, Batgirl in a movie and doing a trio. You know, Evan Flark is in the chat. He said, need me some Mad Hatter goodness. Also slick. Giacchino is indeed mid. Zimmer Supremacy 24/7. Thank you, Evan. Finally, you understand. Someone agrees with me. Can you please stick your head out for? No, don't stick your head out for me on Twitter. You will get decapitated. It's already happened to me. No, in all seriousness, I really feel strongly that we need the Bat family, and that's what will make this the definitive Batman trilogy of all time, right? Because how will this trilogy differentiate itself from the other trilogies? Let's take the Dark Knight trilogy, for instance. You know, we already have an incredible Joker performance. It's not even eminently clear it's possible to beat Heath Ledger, frankly. And looking at every other facet of the trilogy, it's done incredibly well. It can maybe be conquered, but like, I don't know, can you do the Joker better than Heath Ledger did? Maybe not. But the one way that you could immediately stand out and become the definitively best Batman trilogy of all time is to bring the Bat family to life off the comic book page for the first time in live action. And no, 1997 does not count. I'm talking about actually doing the real Bat family, looking at the mainstream media outlets that have done it well, like the Arkham games, the animated series, some of the animated movies. And in addition to that, looking at other iterations of the characters that have been done well, like the Chuck Dixon 90s comics, even going back to some of the comics in the 80s. I mean, this stuff is such an incredible framework and model to make a successful movie and iteration of the Bat family. So yeah, I want to see Barbara Gordon, Dick Grayson, maybe Tim Drake, but I would start with those two. And I don't want to get too overboard on like, oh, there's like 7 Robins. Like, that's just going to confuse the audience. We need to have like Dick Grayson as Robin, Barbara Gordon's Batgirl, and pretty much go from there. But I think that's a good start. And for me, it's like make or break. I mean, like the Batman 2 without the Bat family is, I would be very, very disappointed, because it's what needs to happen next. Like, we've had decades and decades of solo Batman movies, 1989, 2005, 97, I guess, if we're going to count that. You know, I mean, there's just been so many solo Batman movies that, this is what I want from the second movie. Even more than any villain wish list I could go over, this is what I want.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to myself that I would be probably more disappointed if Dick Grayson's Robin isn't in the sequel more than anything else. Like, even more than we're talking about the villains that may or may not appear. Like, that would be just so disappointing for me. And I've been ranting about this, I don't understand why we race bend Jim Gordon, and it's a good casting, and we race bend Barbara Gordon, and then we put them in separate universes where Barbara Gordon's father is white. I don't understand that. But at least we know that now they're doing like the multiverse thing. And it used to be that they were really afraid of having multiple versions of characters in like TV and movies at the same time. Now they just don't care. So the presence of a Batgirl show, and there's rumors that there will be a Nightwing in that show, that does not mean that there won't be a Dick Grayson on the big screen. In fact, I was hearing a rumor that I don't know if this rumor is true or not, but it was like there's going to be a version of Dick Grayson who's older in the Batgirl movie, a version of Dick Grayson who's younger in the Batman trilogy, and then there's going to be a Dick Grayson on the Gotham Knights show that's going forward for some reason.
Lord.
And then there's still a Dick Grayson in the Titans show. So we're going to have 4 Dick Graysons floating around.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, here's the thing. I agree with you that I agree they shouldn't care. This whole thing about how they tanked all these DC TV shows because they're like, oh, my rights. Like, you can't use this character because they're in the movies. Like, that's stupid. At a certain point, though, Dick Grayson is only so popular. I use this analogy all the time. Let's go up to 100 people on the street, ask them if they know who Batman is. 100 out of 100 will say yes. If I go up to 100 random people on the street, grandmas, grandpas, like anybody, and I say, hey, who's Dick Grayson? I don't know what percent, 15% maybe will know
To
who he
be
is.
fair, most people just think Robin. Like I grew up and I knew, oh, Batman and Robin. I had no idea he was Dick Grayson. I had no idea that was his name. So I was like, oh, Robin, Batman's sidekick.
For sure. And if you
I
say
actually,
Robin, people will know.
yeah, I actually didn't know Batman was Bruce Wayne before I got into like
Sure.
comics. I got into superheroes and comics when I was a teenager. When I grew up, I was just like, Batman is Batman, and Batman wears a cape, and Batman has
Right.
Robin, and Batman flies. I thought Batman flew just because he had a cape.
No. Point taken. That's fair. But the point that I'm getting at is, it feels to me as though the audience will get confused at a certain point. Like if we, these characters, someone like Dick Grayson is not as popular as Batman, where you can have multiple iterations or even the Joker and that sort of thing. But it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just want the introduction of Dick Grayson to be great, and I think that I am a little concerned about all those different multiverse universes. But hey, I guess it's better that finally they are letting the reins go on some of these characters and giving some creators a shot. But I just want to point out that Gotham Knights TV show is, I'm not feeling optimistic about that in any way.
Yeah, not at all. I'm a little bit frustrated because even if the Batgirl movie is good, after I watched this movie, I'm like, why isn't this all one like Batverse? It's supposed to be a Batverse. I'm like, why are they making another like universe for Batman with Michael Keaton and Barbara Gordon when you have one that's doing very, very well? Why would you have and you're going to have HBO Max content for the Batman universe competing with that? I don't know why that you have to like if you have like I don't agree with them making the Gotham Knights show at all. Like I don't think that needs to be made, but let's say you have like a really, really cheap show that's using these characters and it's such a lower scale and it's just so far off from it. And then I'm like, okay, but I'm like, why are we having two major things that they really want to promote, the Batgirl movie and the Batman film, and they're very separate from each other? I'm like, I think that they should all be together in the same universe and be able to cross over, and then like people won't get confused by that. Dare I say it, this is something positive. It's like the MCU where it's all connected, and then you can watch one thing and know it's connected to the next thing. So I don't they need to just cancel Titans. And I don't know if there's any fans of that show here that I offended, but I don't like Titans. I don't think we need it. And like there's only so many Dick Graysons that we need. I'm like, just have one Batman universe that you're focusing on and you don't have to do anything else. Unless the Batgirl film justifies itself and it's like it's such a different tone and such a different universe. Like we have this here so we can have maybe even more kid-friendly Batman stories. I guess we just have like this to be an incredibly different universe, and I'm fine with that if they're just like, because Batman's such a big IP, and not just the character but the lore. Then I'm fine if they do that. I guess I just have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, we're gonna go for about an hour, so we've got about 10 to 15 minutes left in the stream. If you have any questions you would like to ask us or discussion points you would like to share with the stream, be sure to send those in. We'll be reading the chat, particularly in the last 10 minutes as we wrap up the show. And just wanted to get a chance for you guys to chime in, since Teresa and I have been kind of going at it for about 50 minutes now. If you have any discussion points you would like to share with the group, please put those in the chat. Looks like people are disagreeing with you and saying Titans is amazing. Got to establish the Bat family over 15 years, according to Blake. Taladia says Titans did Dick Grayson good on HBO Max. What, Teresa, you're getting ratioed right now, just like me on Twitter. Why is everyone disagreeing with you?
I don't know. I think the casting for Dick Grayson's good on that show. I have not liked what I liked. I have not liked anything I've seen from Titans. I remember everyone hated it when that first trailer came out and was like, it's an edgelord show. And then I watched it myself and everyone was like, no, you got to watch it. It's actually good. And I'm like, no, it's not. And so continue to ratio me. I'm not going back on my thoughts on that show.
Let's see, what else do we have here in the comments. I don't know if Ben Affleck is going to be done playing Batman. He definitely is, Valentine. He is donezo.
He's made it very clear.
Titans was decent for the first 3 episodes of season 3, but then went straight downhill. Tends to happen with shows like that. Valentine says Ben Affleck cannot be done playing Batman, but he is, though. He doesn't
He
want to
is.
do it.
He had a press release. Like, he's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, and he's gonna keep getting asked about it, but and he will show up in the Flash, obviously. So
Yeah,
that'll
that's
be cool.
the last Batman,
But
Ben
the
Affleck
reason he's
Batman.
showing up in Flash is so people can stop asking him about it. Like that's the reason that he's gonna be in it.
They won't stop. They won't stop.
Yeah, that's true. And
I
this
was
is
seeing Snyder, like, just such bitterness from some Snyder fans over this movie. Like, there was the post about how you can't be the definitive Batman if you're Bruce Wayne. It sucks, or something like that. And then that same person was like, this Batman is a peeping Tom because he watched Catwoman change her clothes or something like that, and that was used against him. And then I saw a post about how people are giving Riddler a pass where they wouldn't for Leto's Joker and whatnot. And I'm just like, I'm done with these Snyder fans. They're so bitter. And like, there's a post of should have been Batfleck over Robert Pattinson's Batman. And I'm like, I can't anymore. I'm done with anything related to the Snyderverse. I'm like, I've got what I want, and I'm done with the like drama.
All right, Teresa, Batman 101 has an important super chat for you. Teresa, please provide proof that Bruce Wayne is the Mask, and Knighton or I can debunk it. He isn't the Mask. You would know this if you read comics.
Is that the whole thing that he writes?
That's his comment.
Interesting. Well, there's different, I mean, most of the comics I have read have Batman in the Batman persona is who he really is, and Bruce Wayne, the guy who goes to parties, the guy who has like 8 women swinging on his arm, is the Mask. So I've read Long Halloween, I've read Man Who Laughs, let's see, book collection. Let's see, I'm just seeing my books. I've read Dark Victory. I'm getting Court of Owls right now. So I've read like some from like No Man's Land and Chuck Dixon, who did Batman a bit. And then I have read Grant Morrison, but I haven't read I've read Arkham Asylum, Serious House on Serious Earth. So that's just my general impressions from the character. Like, I think that there's different interpretations of him. And that maybe there are writers out there who have primarily focused that Bruce Wayne is who he really is, but most interpretations I've read see him as Batman first. And I like, if I were going to give a definitive quote on that, it would be from Batman Beyond, but I'm not going to, because this is like testing at me if I've read comics or not. And Batman Beyond is a TV show, but just most comics, it's like Batman the persona, not Batman the persona, like Batman is basically more of who he is as a result of his parents' death, and then Bruce Wayne is just the person who's there for public appearances. So you
Batman
can debate
101, let me ask you, are you a fan of K-Wing? Because K-Wing's most viewed video is all about this, and it's all about how Bruce Wayne died when he was 8 years old in Crime Alley, and Batman was born when he was 8, and Bruce Wayne doesn't exist. It's just a persona. So are you saying that you disagree with K-Wing, one of the foremost Batman experts in the world? Batman 101? Is that what you're saying? Just kidding. No, but seriously, you should look at that video, and he talks about this.
Yeah, that's just,
it's a common take. Okay, you might disagree with it, but don't pretend that it's controversial, or it's like,
well, yeah, you put me on the spot, like, prove you've read comics by thinking this. And like, I mean, I've read comics, I've watched the cartoons, I've the video games and the movies, and it's like, just generally speaking, that's my impression of Batman, that Bruce Wayne is the Mask, and that who he is, kind of like what K-Wing said in his video, like Batman was born that night when he was 8 years old. And I see Batman as more of who that little kid became, more so than Bruce Wayne. So that's just my opinion of it. I see him as putting on more of a facade when he's Bruce Wayne. And like, that's my take on the character. And it doesn't even need to be so much that this is exactly how it is in every single comic ever written, and that they explicitly say that. That's just my general take on the character.
Chuck Dixon debunked this in Night's End, and it led to long-term impacts on his character. Debunked
Which
in
comic?
what sense? K-Wing does not understand Batman. Oh, that's funny.
This is
Oh,
what
Batman
what
101,
comic
no
did he
idea.
mention?
Let's see. Which one did he mention? Night's End. Well,
Night's
here's the other thing. The other thing is, it's even this is like it's not explicitly stated in a certain sense. Like, this is more of your interpretation of like, oh, okay, when Bruce Wayne is at parties and he has his arm candy and all of this, like, is that really what he is, or is he more in his zone? Like, is he more fired up when he's Batman? Like, is that more what excites him, or is it more the Bruce Wayne lifestyle of like philanthropy to some extent, but even more just like going to parties and galas and dating girls? Or is that really what gets him excited, or is it being Batman? And the answer is very clearly in almost every iteration of Batman, the latter. So this whole distinction of like, is Bruce Wayne the real Batman? Is Batman the real Batman? Well, I mean, it's an oversimplification, right? It's not as black and white as that, but it is just a framework to work within and to understand that Batman very much so is a representation and manifestation of Bruce Wayne's psyche. And to that extent, Batman is more Bruce than Bruce himself. But in a certain sense, of course, Bruce Wayne is still his own person. So it's kind of a complicated thing. People do oversimplify it, but broadly, I would agree with that framework. And you're spamming Batman number 604, so I'll look at that later. Greg.
I think I've read that issue. I will read it.
Greg,
I read Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, I'm so sorry. Nope. Paul Dini had. I feel like I need to prove I've read comics now. Yes, I read comics. It's like Paul Dini had a really good Detective Comics run as well. So, and then I think Grant Morrison was on the book during that time. But I'll go. What was it? Batman 664.
604.
Is that Grant Morrison? Let me see. I think it is. It sounds familiar. Continue what you're going to say. I'm just looking this up.
Greg with the $2 super chat. K-Wing doesn't understand Batman. Wow. You won't tell him to his face. You won't go in his stream and say that. Greg, I know you won't. Greg, you will not go in his stream and say that.
Say it to his face. I will read this comic, Batman 604. I need all the Batman knowledge I can. So next time that I get into a debate with someone and they bring that up,
Okay, but here's the thing. That's just, I mean, yeah, what if that's just one person's take on it, though? You know?
That's true. And this is, I guess I might have a little bit of this sometimes, but I have a little bit of problem with, if you disagree with my take on the character, that means, and they didn't say that to me tonight, but like, if you disagree with my take on this character, then that means you're not an actual fan of the character. And the problem is, with each character from comics, there's just, especially the most iconic ones, there's just so many different takes on the character. Sometimes you can both disagree on a point about who the character is and both be right, because both things have been done in the comics, like by a different writer. So that's kind of just my closing thoughts on that, is that if, like, even when I was debating people online about that, because I saw someone write that Bruce Wayne is not the Mask, and if you don't agree with that, you don't understand Batman. And I'm like, well, most versions give the general impression that Bruce Wayne is actually the Mask, and it's like, but if there's a different, I wouldn't be surprised if there are versions that explicitly say Bruce Wayne is who he actually is. So
let's see here. Okay. So Greg says, Teresa, check the tweet Knighton tagged you in. Okay, and I'm going to read it. It says, Batman says, I thought that in many ways Bruce Wayne died along with his parents. And the mask, this is presumably from Batman 604. And the mask I've shown the world all these years is the remnant of what that child was before that night. But it's not true. My codes, the rules I live by, these ideals come from my father, from Thomas Wayne. That's why I couldn't let even a killer like Tony Relici get shot, because he wouldn't have either. He believed in the sanctity of all life. I've been so blind all this time. I thought the real Bruce Wayne was the happy child of memory. But now that everything has been stripped away from him, I realize that the mask is not Bruce at all. I am Bruce Wayne. I always have been. Okay, so that's Batman 604, but what happens when you're watching a movie where Batman literally says, he doesn't want to emulate his father. He doesn't want to get his ideals from his father, and he wants to abandon the Wayne legacy because it happens to be kind of corrupt and shitty. So this is, I mean, that's an example of that. Now, go ahead.
I was gonna say this is an example of different takes. Like, I mean, I used to think that the Joker and Batman have never teamed up, and then I eventually found a comic. Oh, that actually happened. Like, there's not a lot that you haven't done with characters that are like 80 years old and constantly having comics and media published about them. But it's like, I'm sure that there's that take out there, and I didn't know that wasn't a specific comic that I had read. But now I know that that's out there. And then if I would go to Batman Beyond as a piece of media where Bruce Wayne says that he always refers to him in his mind as Batman, and how the Batman persona, or even just the entire animated series where like he kind of puts on this happy, I know I'm using like animated shows as opposed to comics here, but he kind of has this kind of happy, carefree voice whenever he's Bruce Wayne, and whenever he's in the Batcave or just normal or he's using his Batman voice. And so that's kind of a verbal representation of who he really is. So that's just what I'm showing as like different takes of the characters and in most general comics. And it could be because Batman the Animated Series was what I watched first, and then I got into comics. And so that was my impression going into comics and just kind of subconsciously informing me. But that's what I'm saying as like different takes on the character and what someone might generally think.
Right. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Everybody, don't bully Teresa on Twitter. You can bully me, but don't bully Teresa, okay? Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this live stream. If you did, give it a thumbs up and help boost it in the algorithm so other people can see the VOD. Subscribe to this channel. Ring the notification bell. Subscribe to Teresa down in the comment section. In the description below. I'm linked to her channel. Go watch her full review of the Batman, and make sure you subscribe and ring the notification bell on her channel so you can stay up to date on all the latest of her videos. Been having her in a lot of live streams, so make sure you subscribe to her, and let's help her get to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Once again, subscribe and ring the bell. My name is Slickmoff. See you guys in the next video.